Hi, this is Terri on It's About Writing. And today we have Judy DuCharme with us, and she has published multiple books. Judy, why don't you tell us something about yourself?
Well, I grew up on Lake Huron in a little town of Michigan. And when I married, I went to Michigan State University and I graduated in communication arts. And then when I met my husband, we were married, had two children. And then we moved to Wisconsin to a beautiful little peninsula called Door County. And when my kids went back to school, I went back to school and became a teacher and taught fifth grade for 22 years. The thought of writing was always kind of in the back of my mind. I wrote short stories and poetry when I was younger, and actually took a class when the kids were little, and a correspondence course on writing for children and teenagers. But then, life just got busy, and I thought it was interesting because I remember thinking if I'm going to be a writer, I'm going to have to cloister myself away in a little room,
Mhm.
8 hours a day. And I knew I couldn't do that. I was too
Mhm.
social. And so I never fully pursued it until just that prompting and nudging from the Lord, later in life, just called me back to that. And I realized that I could sit for 45 minutes and do a lot and then leave it and then come back. So I am definitely what you call a pantster. I am not a plotter. My writing is not my writing time and schedule is not what you would call disciplined.
Well,
So,
if it
but
works.
yeah, and so we do Florida for 3 months. We're in Florida now, and we love to hike, love to see family,
Mhm.
love our church, love to worship, and I love to teach Bible studies. So that's
Oh,
kind
that's
of
good. Yeah.
that's kind of me.
So you have mentioned that you have books in several genres.
Yes.
And do you have some books to show us, to share with us today?
Yes, okay, my most recent, is Lainey of the Door Islands. It's a bit of an Anne of Green Gables set in the islands around Door County. Door County is, as I said, a peninsula. It's like the finger of Wisconsin, the little finger sticking out into the water. There's a few islands around it. There's lighthouses, shipwrecks, and so Lainey is set in the middle of that, being raised in the lighthouses, and
Wow.
and shipwrecks are occurring, and just her spunk and her grace makes her a survivor in all of those situations. So that's what that is. And on my website, I'll mention that, judithducharme.com. Also on YouTube and even on Facebook, if you look me up, I did a whole bunch of little, uh, almost like Chamber of Commerce videos, 30 seconds to a minute, of the places where the story takes place. And I tell just a little bit about the history of the place, a little bit about the story, and I call it Lainey's Tour of Door Islands or
Oh,
Lainey's Tour of Door County. And so those were kind of fun and just a way to market and advertise. So
and this is the book that just came out in July, right?
it came out in July. Yes,
Okay.
yes. So and then I did the one before that. This came out in October of 2018, Blood Moon Redemption. This is a very suspenseful book, keeps you on the edge of your seat. My brother loves to read books and do reviews and all of that. And what I loved when he wrote about this, he said most books give you a place to stop overnight. This one plows through all the stop signs.
Wow,
And
that's
I
a
love
compliment.
that. Yeah, that was great. And Tassie is named for a tassel that came across with Columbus. The premise is that Columbus was at least part Jewish, which there's a lot of historical evidence for that. And so when the Jews were kicked out of Spain, They had to be out by July 31st. Columbus sailed on August 3rd. So this tassel goes and goes through time, and this goes back and forth, following that pattern, and then tying in all the information about the blood moons that
Wow.
was in the news a lot, over the last several years. And there's a terrorist plot, and so there's Israeli history, um, prophecy, and a terrorist plot all combined in this. So
Yeah,
it
it
was a
sounds
fun one to write.
fascinating. I read about that one. I don't know if I read it on your website or Goodreads or one of those places, but where you talk about the blood moon in a little more detail, and that was so
Yes.
interesting. Yeah.
There was a lot of information about blood moons that was so interesting, but most of it was nonfiction.
Hmm.
And I know some people, my husband reads almost totally nonfiction, and I read almost totally fiction.
Right.
And so I knew that there would be people that I wanted people to know about the blood moons and all that history, and
Mhm.
all that it portends. And I thought, well, maybe if I write a book, a fiction book, it will draw them to research it more on their own. And a lot of people have told me that it's done just that.
Yeah.
So
That's
that was good. Okay, and then Society of the Lamb. This is Love, Authority, Mercy, and Boldness.
cool.
This is futuristic, although now I feel it's a lot current day. You are, if they detect life in you, you are sent for retraining. And so this is the Society of the Lamb. They meet in grandfather's house here up on a bluff, in the woods, and they learn how to, and I call it the shout within, because if they speak openly, they would be arrested. So they learn how to trust the Lord, and speak his truth, but inside, as they search for people to kind of rescue and bring into the Society of the Lamb. There's a
Wow.
lot of angels and everything like that. So
Oh,
it's
cool.
kind of if in the movies there was Divergent. You remember that, the movie of Divergent, and they had the 5 or 4 factions. Now I said this would be the spiritual faction
Oh.
if it were included in that. So, um, and then I have my this is a novella and a short story combined in one book. Online, you can only get it in ebook, but the publisher um, prints it for me, so I can sell it personally.
Oh,
Um, yeah, and one is a Cracker Cowboy Christmas inspirational romance.
okay.
So it's historical, set in, oh goodness, there's my phone ringing. Where is it? Let me just turn that off.
Okay.
Okay, forgot to turn that down. And it's set in Florida. It's about the Cracker Cowboys. They crack their whip rather than using the lasso to corral the cattle and everything. And then a sweet Christmas story of an unusual visitation that a young woman has from her grandparents, who have already died. So, and then there's a quilt involved, and a sweet story of that the Lord does for them. So,
So
and
if
then,
people wanted a hard copy of that, can they order it on your website or?
I don't have that capability on the website, but they could, message me or email me or something. I'm on Facebook. It's just Judy DuCharme or Judy DuCharme author. And so they could message me, or
Okay.
and I could mail it,
Yeah. A
to
lot
them.
of people I know read digital, but then there's some of us who just like to read books.
I know, I know, I know.
Mhm.
I totally agree. And then I have my 2 Packer ones. I'm as if
From
anybody did it,
Wisconsin.
I'm a ridiculous Packer fan. Um, I only grieved a couple of days when we lost the championship. So, but they take you to the game. They have a life. They draw a life principle or biblical principle from the situation. And then I have the extra point, which is a little prayer. I have the coach's challenge or the playbook idea. Um, in this one, I have a quote of Vince Lombardi on every page. So I have from the playbook, it's a scripture, the coach's challenge, which is the quote from Lombardi, and then the story, and then at the end, the extra point, which is just a short prayer or a takeaway
That's
thought.
a great idea.
Yeah, and so Brett Favre, our famous previous quarterback, his mom wrote the foreword for one, and then Sarah White, whose wife was Reggie White, who was one of our very, very famous players, she wrote the foreword for the other one. So
Oh, that's great.
yeah, so
Cool.
and then I write for guideposts. I have written some stories for guideposts as well.
Mhm. Great. And you have a children's, is it a series or just a book?
No, just a single book. It's called I Want a Water Buffalo for Christmas. Um, and it's kind of in three parts. It's about a water buffalo, his story about a young girl in the States who wants to, through a gospel organization, pay for a water buffalo to go to a third world family in need. And then the third part is about that actual family that is suffering, that
Oh,
then receives a water buffalo. So
how fun.
yeah.
So, one of my first questions is, how do you get away with writing in so many different genres, different age groups?
I
And
don't know how I don't know how I get away with it, but it's like I remember one of the first agents I talked to years ago, about having an agent. And she said, you need to find your niche and stay there.
Mhm.
And I thought I was doomed because I couldn't stay there. And I mean, the Packer devotionals were definitely a niche. And I have a friend who's gone on and written tons and of all kinds, but I know I just had it so in my heart to go with the novels. And so I just have gone with that. I have three different publishers, and perhaps that's part of it.
Mhm.
Um, so I'm not real sure how I've gotten away with it. I just have.
Mhm. So how do you come up with your next work? I mean, you're thinking outside the box. You don't have a box to stay in, so.
That's true. And I think it's just the things that are on my heart, what I see. Like I remember when the blood moons, in fact, it was my husband. Now when I think back, it was my husband who said, Judy, you really need to write a book about the blood moons. So he actually gave me a couple of key parts of that. My husband, who never reads fiction. Um, and so so I just prayed about it and thought about it, and it just started coming. And that was the first book that I wrote where I was kind of midway through and the characters kind of took over. And I'd heard people talk about that, and it was just like, oh my goodness, where are they going with this? I don't know if I want him to be doing this. So it was really fun. So and it's just, it sounds weird unless you're a writer. So
Right. We have a lot of writers watching, so they.
yes, well, good. So you know what I'm talking about. So that was where it happened. And I remember thinking, I didn't know her brother was CIA. I did not, I didn't, how, what, where, so, but I think what I usually say when people ask how I come up with the ideas, I think as most of us know, if we're writers, because of the imaginations that we have, there's stories there's probably 10 stories going through our minds every day when we see things and that. And it's kind of the ones that stay with me
Mm,
um, that 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 I can't quite let go, that just keep forming. And so I feel like that's what I need to do, or I just feel kind of that anointing. Um, I think it was last year, perhaps I was walking on the beach and I have, at the time I had just gotten the contract. I don't even know if I'd gotten the contract yet for Lainey of the Door Islands. And another story from down here, but in a similar vein, started going through my mind all the way I was walking. And I kept saying, no, no, I do not have time. No, no. And even when when I got Lainey, and people said, is there going to be a sequel? Are you going to make it a series? I was like, I don't think so. I don't think so. And now I'm writing a sequel. And so then after, I maybe, I don't know, 13,000 words into the sequel. And now that I'm back down here, I'm kind of going, that would make a good third book, the one that was running through my mind that day. And I thought, oh, I pushed so much of it away. I wonder if I can remember it. So that's kind of how it happens, and I think that's probably the case with many authors.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, that's great. Do you have any tips for writers that either in genre or just about craft or anything?
Well, the biggest advice that I have for any writer is to go to conferences.
Mm,
And if you haven't gotten to any yet, to get to one. I know a lot of them now are virtual, and that's good. But I really would prefer them to be in person, which I think they're getting back to now. And and that was the best advice given to me. I had written Society of the Lamb, and I really only had it half done, but I thought it was done. And so I asked a lady I knew who was an author in our community. I didn't know her well, but I knew her son. And she said, go to a conference, just go to a conference. And that was the best advice, because you meet the publishers, you meet the agents, editors, you network with other writers, you take the workshops, you you learn more about the craft, you realize all the things that you didn't even know you shouldn't be doing that you were doing,
mhm,
and how to improve all the things that you're already good at.
mhm,
And so that's it. One of the big things for me has been point of view and learning not to head hop, which I did a lot of at the beginning, and I didn't even realize I was doing it. So that when you're in one section of the book, you can only be in one person's head. You can perceive by actions and such what the other person is thinking, but you can't know. And so that's been good. And even once in a while, I'm part of a critique group. Oh my goodness.
mhm.
Oh, sorry about that.
That's okay.
We'll just turn that off. I apologize. Um, that it's so important with your POV to keep in one person's head. And I know I just had a thought that I lost. um, but and then also the action tags. That's another thing that uh, I've learned. I think I've learned, how to do. Uh, and trying to do it more so that I'm not saying she said dejectedly, or he yelled angrily. You have the tag of he slammed the cup on the table, and
Mhm,
then he just says, so you don't have to, he's angry. You don't have to um, say that they're angry. And so that, I think, is one of the really big things. And it's really kind of fun once you get into learning how to do that.
mhm,
And because, in fact, when I go back through uh, Society of the Lamb, my very first novel, a couple of years ago, they did an audio version of it. I think most of my books are in audio, but I had to kind of proof the audio. And as I was listening to it, I thought, "Oh, can I edit now? Can I edit it?" Because I had too much of the said and, and didn't have enough of the what I thought should be the action tags.
Yeah.
So that was I was almost embarrassed, but, I'm sure that it's still okay.
I think every author will cringe when they go back and read their early works and say, "Oh, I didn't do," now we
Yep.
know what we didn't do.
Yes, yes, and now we understand what those editors and everybody was thinking,
Yeah,
and that's another thing, you definitely need an editor no matter how good you are,
yeah, good
you
idea.
absolutely need an editor,
Yeah. So do you get your editor through your publisher? Is that?
yes,
Mhm.
yes, yeah.
Yeah, that's good. We all need that. That's for sure. Well, we have just a few more minutes. Did you want to talk to us about how you do your research?
Oh, okay, well, it it's a lot of you need to do, your book research or your online research. You need to talk to people. I know with Lainey, what I did, was I talked to the fishermen, I went and visited the lighthouses and, they don't have the lighthouse keepers anymore, but they have the docents who tell about it, and I took notes. I went on the boat tours that, went out around there, and then, I lived there, so I talked to, people that I knew, and then I got books about the history of the shipwrecks and the lighthouses, and so you combine all that. And I know, it's easy, and I know some people do that. I remember when I was younger reading books, and I would get they would be so weighed down in describing the setting
Mhm,
or, the backstory, and that's something that editors have gotten after me a little bit about having too much backstory and learning how to just give the hint. You don't have to describe, the building in complete detail, but you need to, give a few hints.
mhm,
And when you're in the setting, the clothes flapped on the line as she, you know, leaned against the warm brick of the building. So you feel you can get the windy, the sunny. You don't have to say, it was summer in 19 such and such,
right.
and all of that. You can give hints, and that's I still when I'm reading, I really take note of how other people do that, and how they skip things or use things, and I think, okay, I got to remember that.
Mhm,
Um, and so, but research, when I wrote Run with the Wind, which is the cowboy one, and there's a lot about cows giving birth in that. And I spent probably 2 hours sitting in front of YouTube watching cows give birth.
wow.
So, I mean, you do some crazy things,
Yeah.
but I'm sure everybody knows that. And so you really need to look into the time frame. When I was writing Blood Moon Redemption, I had to do. It was crazy. I figured, all my friends figured I was going to get detained when I went out to Washington D.C. when I flew out there to visit my daughter, because I was looking up things about ISIS and how far from Damascus to Tel Aviv, and all of this type of stuff. And they were sure I was never going to be able to fly again.
They check
And
your computer, you're in trouble.
yes, I know. It was like, okay, please, I'm so sorry. It was for a book. It really was.
Yeah.
And so you have to get your details, and you should write. Definitely, there's the old saying of write what you know. Incorporate all of that into it. Incorporate a little bit of yourself, a little bit of the people you know, but do the research for the things that you don't know. and the
Mhm.
places that you haven't been. And I know some would say, well, if you haven't been there, you shouldn't write about it. But there's quite a bit that you can still do.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. Well, thank you so much. This has been wonderful. And I will attach all of your links to the YouTube video down here
okay,
so people
thank
can
you.
get hold of you and find your books. And you sent me several links. If there's anything else you want me to attach, you can send me that. But it's just been wonderful to talk to you. Thank you so much for sharing your books and your ideas with us.
Thank you for having me. I appreciate it.
Goodbye, everybody. Have a good day.
Thank you.